Hello, everybody. I'm Melissa, and welcome back to Book Bar, and welcome to my January end of month wrap up. If you are new here, I break my wrap ups up into mid month and end of month wrap up because in the month of January, I read a total of 36 books. So it would be a lot to talk about each one if I did it all at the end of the month. So there is a mid-month wrap-up that I will link in the cards above, where you can hear about the first 15 books that I read in the month of February. So in the second half of the month, I went a little crazy and I read 20 books. 21 books. In the second half of the month, I read a total of 21 books. Was a little bit wild, but you know, it is what it is. I binged an entire series. I went a little crazy. So I participated in the KU Readathon. Well, I co-hosted the KU Readathon. All sorts of crazy fun stuff. So we're going to go ahead and just get on started talking about the books. The first book that I finished in the second half of the month was Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This I read because I am actually going to be seeing Jennifer Hartman at a signing in February. This month, and I hadn't ever read a Jennifer Hartman book, so I was like, you know what, I need to try one. And I had bought Still Beating in like an Audible sale, and it sounded really good. I do love me a good dark romance every once in a while. So this follows Dean and Cora, and basically Dean is engaged to Cora's sister. They've been together since high school. Cora and Dean have always kind of hated each other. Had a very sorry if I'm like looking away. I am technically working right now, so. But Dean and Cora have always kind of had an antagonistic relationship towards each other. And yes, so one night they are out for celebrating Cora's sister's birthday. And I can't even remember her name at this point. I'm really bad with like side characters' names. But yeah, so they're out celebrating. Cora decides to stay out a little bit longer, and then she goes to leave and realizes that her whole wallet and everything is missing. So she's trying to get a hold of someone to come pick her up, and the last person that she can call is Dean. So she calls Dean, and he comes and picks her up, and while there, they end up getting kidnapped by a man by a serial killer called the Matchmaker, who kidnaps a couple people that don't like each other and makes them fall in love with each other, makes them do despicable things to each other. He does despicable things. So yeah, there is a lot of triggering content in the first like half of this book, third of this book. But yeah, it is very dark. I do know that going in. There's lots of SA and everything. There's PTSD, all sorts of content warnings, so please check those before going into this. But yeah, I was not ready. Basically, I was not ready for the emotions that this book brought out of me, and yeah, I was gripped. I kept like wanting to read, and I didn't want to put it down. So I did enjoy this. I gave this 5 stars. I had a great time. Well, yeah, great time is subjective. Then the next book that I finished was See Through Heart by Amy Knight. I read this because this author was supposed to be at Holidays with the Bells. And I had gotten this book for free, and like it was a $1.99 audiobook add-on. So I did that. And this is Adrian and Ainsley. And basically they, when they're 8 years old, Adrian moves next door to Ainsley, and Ainsley has her cousin Laurel that lives with them. And basically the three of them are just thick as thieves, all growing up. And when they turn, like in high school, Adrian and Ainsley start to realize that they have feelings for each other that are not just friendly. But then something tragic happens, and Ainsley runs away. Basically, now it's a couple years later, and she's back because something else has happened. And so she's back home. And she sees Adrian, and he has moved on, or tried to move on, and just, get over her because she just kind of left and like didn't say anything and pieced out real quick. And so now she's back, and yes, this book was fantastic. It was a little short and like abrupt, so that's why I only gave 4.5 stars, but I had a great time with it. I cried, and I was not expecting that from this book, but it was very good, and so I gave it 4.5 stars. and I definitely suggest you read it. And I will definitely pick up more in this series, so I will do that. Now I'm going to hold off. So I did finish Balance before this next book, but I'm going to talk about this in a minute. I'm going to talk about the next book that I finished first, which was Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. This is the third book in the Folk of the Air trilogy. Basically, can't say much because it is the third book. It is directly following things that happen. So, yeah, I can't really say much, but I do love this. I did love it again upon reread. I gave 5 stars again. Fantastic. It's so fun being in the world of Elfhame. Being with Jude and Cardan, I just love them so much. This is a book series that I think will be one that I consistently reread just because it's just fun. Is it the best thing ever? No, it is not. Will fantasy lovers like it? Probably not. But as someone who likes romance and when I first read this series, I didn't know I was a baby fantasy reader. I didn't read any fantasy. So I got into this and I just was immersed in the world, and I'm again immersed in the world. So yes, 5 stars. I loved it. So now we're gonna talk about the Off Balance series. I binged this entire series, and yeah. So this is, I'm obsessed with this series. So this follows Rhea and Kova, and Rhea is a gymnast and wants to become an Olympic gymnast. And so she basically goes to live she goes to live somewhere else to train with this gym called World Cup, where she meets Kova, who is her coach. And yes, Rhea is under the age of 18 when this starts, but she is 16, and the age of consent in the state of Georgia is 16. So, do you know that? I know when this book first published, there was all sorts of problems, and Lucia Franco actually went in and changed all of them. So, yeah. So, I finished Balance, Execution, Release, Twist, and Dismount all within a weekend. I just absolutely adored this whole series, and I already want to reread it, and I literally just finished it a week and a half ago. So, fantastic. This book, I think, overall the series is 5 stars, but this book was 4, and then I gave books 2, 3, and 4 4.5 stars. Probably should have given them 5, but just on a first read, they were 4.5, and then book 5 was 5 stars. I cried. I felt all of the emotions. But yeah, basically the whole series follows this couple. There are all sorts of twists and turns. Every book ends in a cliffhanger, and you're just I need to know what's going to happen. So yes, Rhea and Kova supremacy. I was terrified to pick this series up, but I'm glad that McKay, Caitlin, and Cheyenne all decided to do their read along for it, because it forced me to pick it up, and I just this was like candy. I just could not stop. I am obsessed. And I want all of the Rhea and Kova content, and I cannot wait to meet Lucia Franco at at Holiday with the Bells and just gush and tell her how amazing this series is. So yeah. I don't know what to say. Just read this. It is fantastic. Then I finished, which technically I finished it before I finished Dismount, but it's fine. I finished How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. This was just a fun little short story collection from Cardan's point of view. It has beautiful illustrations. Basically, it was just a way for Holly Black to show off his tail, Cardan's tail. So, had a great time. 5 stars. I mean, it's just a short story collection. It was great. Then I finished So It Goes by Jennifer Probst. This was the second book in her Meant to Be series or something. Twisted of Fate or something. I read the first book last year, and I really did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. I had a good time. It was a fun, it felt small town, but also big city. It was had all sorts of fun tropes. This book was awful. I gave it 2.5 stars. I remember nothing about it, other than it was Malia and Palmer, and she's one of the people that works for the company that the character from the first book worked for, and so she's one of her best friends. And Palmer is he owns a wedding company, and they work closely together until Malia decides to go do something else in the company, and she's gonna work on the nonprofit side instead of the marketing side. And he's like upset about it. And I don't know. It was weird. I did not have a good time. I gave it 2.5 stars. And yeah, I will never think about that book again. Basically. Then I finished, sorry, I'm like trying to like keep my notes in order. Then I finished In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. This was a super cute, fun, small town romance that followed Shay and Noah. And Shay, in the prologue, she's going to get married, and her fiance calls her and says, I don't want to marry you. Like, literally in the prologue. While she's like getting ready and everyone is at the wedding, he's already like yeeted out of there, like peaced out, like said, F this, I don't care. Told his whole family he wasn't going, so don't show up to the wedding. And so she has to now go and tell everyone that their wedding's off. And yeah, so then she ends up inheriting her step-grandmother's farm in this small town. And so she goes to this small town to live for a year. And there she runs into her high school best friend, Noah, who Noah has always been in love with Shay. And part of Shay's inheritance is that she has to get married. So Noah and her agree to a marriage of convenience. Noah is kind of a single dad because he has custody of his niece. But yeah, it was a fun marriage of convenience romance. I had a great time. Noah was like deliciously alpha at parts, but also very much like a cinnamon roll, which I just love that. Plus like the name of his farm and his like design and all of that was just so adorable. So I give this one 4.5 stars. Had a good time. Then I finished Rustic Hearts by Amber Kelly. Again, an author that's going to be at Holidays with the Bells. This is another small town romance. I had a feeling so basically, when Sophia is like 11 years old, in the middle of the night, her mom says, we gotta go. We're going to New York. We gotta go. And she's like, but why? I don't want to leave. I love my life here. And her mom is like, no, we gotta go. So they leave in the middle of the night. And her mom tells her that her dad had been cheating on her and like all these things. And basically, now her grandmother has passed away. And so she is asked to go home back to Poplar Falls, Colorado. And there she meets her father's new wife's nephew. No blood relation at all. And Braxton. And Braxton thinks that she's like a princess and just never bothered to come home. There's reasons why. I knew all along what the twist secret was going to be. I gave this one 3 stars. It was cute. It was short. It was fun. I will probably continue with the series because I am really excited for her best friend, who's like very much a city girl, to get a story. Because I was like looking at like the couples, and she is one of them. And so I'm excited for that. And her other best friend gets the second book, and it's like a second chance romance or something. And it just sounds fantastic. So I will continue the series for sure. Then I finished The Culmination of Everything by Christina C. Jones. I started this for the Kindle Unlimited Readathon. So I do have a whole vlog talking about the next couple books. So I'll post that up here, links that up here, so I won't talk about these too much. But basically, this is Kyle and Ben, and Kyle is named for her uncle, a deceased uncle. And Kyle had always planned to hike Sugar Mountain. I think it's Sugar Valley Mountain. She just never thought she'd have to hike it alone. And it's her birthday, so she's going to go on this hike. She gets distracted while on the hike and falls and has to be rescued by Ben, who is like the park ranger. And he thinks she's just this dumb city girl who wasn't prepared. That's not the case. She got distracted, something happened, and she got injured. Well, now her and Ben end up spending a lot of time together. And of course, as things happen in small town romances, they fall in love. But it was really cute. It was fun. I gave 5 stars. I had a great time. Then I finished Brutal Vows by J.T. Geisinger. This was Spider and Raina. Again, I read this for the KU Readathon, so linked up there previously. This is Raina and Spider. Raina is 100% a queen. Her name fits her perfectly. Spider agrees to marry into the Cosa Nostra so that the Irish Mafia and the Cosa Nostra can have like an alliance, because obviously the leader of the Irish Mafia in America is Daddy Declan, and he is already married to Sloane. So Spider's like, I'll do it. Why not? Something happened in the end of the third book that kind of brought this on. So he agrees to this marriage with Liliana, I think her name is, which is actually Rhaena's niece. And Rhaena's like, no, Rhaena had been in an arranged marriage that was really terrible. And so she is very, like, woman scorned and has very terrible thoughts about marriage. Well, something happens and Rhaena ends up having to marry Spider, and it was just fantastic. I absolutely adored it. I loved this book. It was 5 stars, of course. And my favorite of the series. Then I read King of the Court by R.S. Gray. This was just so angsty and amazing. Again, for the KU Readathon. Linked up there. This is Raylan and Ben. A couple stars with Ben's this month. This is a sports romance, small town. So basically, but also big city. It's not fully small town because only like the first half of the book takes place in a small town. Ben is a basketball player, and he's going to be going to the Olympics, but before that he has to go train with the Olympic team in this small remote town of Pine Hill, Texas. And there he meets the local flavor, the girl that works in the diner, Raylan, who had big dreams and ambitions, but she ended up having to go home to Pine Hill, Texas in her senior year of college because her nan, who raised her, is very sick. So she goes back to Pine Hill and she's working multiple jobs, doing all these things, and there she meets Ben, of course, and they have just like an instant like attraction to each other, and he keeps showing up at the diner, and like some other stuff happens and puts them in each other's way, and the scene in the SUV will live rent free in my head forever. But this was fantastic because then some stuff happens and it takes them apart from each other about halfway through the book. And yeah, them getting back together. Oh, it was amazing. I absolutely adored this. 5 stars. A new favorite. Then, this was not in the KU Readathon, but then I finished The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This is, like, Oak. So it's Surin who's in the 3rd book. I'm not going to say how she's in the 3rd book, but it's her, and it's told from, like, her perspective, but it's her and Oak, and they have to go to, I can't really say a ton without giving away spoilers for the main trilogy, but basically, Surin and Oak team up to do some stuff, and it was a good time. I gave it 4.5 stars. I enjoy road trips and things like that, so I liked that aspect of this, which I know a lot of people did not. But I had a good time. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I gave 4.5 stars. It wasn't as good as the original trilogy, but I still had a good time with it. So I'm not mad about it. Then I finished Black by Sophie Lark, also for the KU Readathon. This follows Byron Black and Holly Summers, and it was fine. It was 3.5 stars. Probably not a Sophie Lark book. I wouldn't suggest you start here, because if this is your first Sophie Lark book, you're gonna be like, what is this? It's also, like, basically the only reason I read it is because you meet Black in other books of the Underworld series. It was really different. It was written in 3rd person. It was all told basically from Black's perspective. Like, we don't get any of Holly. And yeah, it wasn't great. So 3.5 stars. Then I read I Walked Where You've Been, also for the KU Readathon. This is a short little novella, male novella. This book actually would have benefited from being longer. Normally, like, when work questions. Normally, when I read novellas, I'm like, this is perfect. Just short, fun. But this one I felt like needed to be a lot longer because of the subject matter. So basically, Maddie, like, in this world, you have a soulmate. You have a soulmate, and you will find your soulmate eventually. Usually it happens when you're in your 20s. Rarely does it happen in your teenagers, but it could. And then But Maddie and Ethan find each other at 8 years old, or 9 years old. And there's a lot of resentment that goes towards this because you're stuck with this person, and like the way it is, you have to be near that person basically a couple times a week. Like you cannot go days without being near them. And they resent this, and there's all sorts of like issues that go along with it, but it was just so fast. So again, I think this would have benefited if it was a little bit longer, which normally I don't say that about novellas, but yeah, I gave 3.5 stars. It was cute. It was fun. Male romance. Then I finished this chunky beast of a boy, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This is my third reread of this book. It is still 5 stars. It is probably my favorite Sarah J. Maas books. Favorite Sarah J. Maas book. There's so much, like, ridiculous number of tabs. These are all like connections that I've made to like her other series. I have a whole live show discussion about this on my channel. I'll link it above. But basically this follows Bryce, and it's at its core, it's a murder mystery. Something happens in the first part of this book, and then these murders are happening again, and Bryce is tasked to find out what happened. And she ends up having to team up with Hunt Alphalar, Fallen Angel, the Umbra Mortis. It's just perfection. I love this book with my whole damn heart. So 5 stars, of course. And yeah, favorite of all time forever. Then I read my first ever spicy manga. I'll Never Be Your Crown Princess. This one does have explicit scenes in it. It is very shiny. Did not realize that. But this is, I'm not even going to try to say the other's name, but it was cute. It was a good time. I gave it 4 stars. Basically, Liddy has been reincarnated. She remembers being Japanese at one point in her life, and now she's reincarnated as a prime minister's daughter, and is told that she has to marry the prince. The only problem is this kingdom believes in polygamy, and Liddy doesn't like that. She's like, no, I want one person. So she decides to go lose her virginity because she cannot get married if she's not a virgin. So she goes to this masquerade and decides to lose her virginity. And yes, things happen from there. So it was a good time. It was cute, fun. I will probably continue the series as it comes out. I think the second volume's out. I don't know yet. But yeah, I had a good time. 4 stars. Then the last book that I finished in the month was Never Seduce a Scot by Maya Banks. This was my reread of 2022 favorites. I had a great time with it. I gave 5 stars. Eveline and Graham hold a special place in my heart forever. It was just as amazing the second time I read it. Maybe even more amazing because I picked up on so much more. But yeah, Eveline and Graham are from rival clans, and the king decrees that these 2 clans need to get married, like need to marry each other. So Eveline has to marry Graham. I do actually on this book, but my mom has it, so I'm not able to hold it up. But Eveline and Graham get married, and everyone believes that Eveline is daft or touched in the head because she suffered an accident a couple years ago and can no longer hear. But what they don't know is that Eveline is actually extremely smart and can read lips and read what people are saying. So, and she can feel some sounds. So the minute she meets Graham, she is just completely enamored by him because she can feel his voice in her soul. Like she can feel his voice, and she's just like, she feels safe with him, like immediately feels safe with this man. And he's kind of picking up on things. He's like, she's not like as how I thought she was. And turns out, he finds out that she was really just deaf and hadn't talked in a couple years because she was afraid too. And yeah, it's just so beautiful. And the story, like, I cry when she realizes what the women of his clan put her through. Just my emotions, I cry so hard during that scene. Every time I just cry. And when she like whispers, I want to go home. Ugh, heartbreaking. But yeah, 5 stars again. So I don't even know. But yeah, those are the 26 books that I read in the second half of the month. I tried to rapid fire talk about them. Looks like I kind of did. I'm at like 26 minutes. So I had a great time. this month. I had a lot of really good rereads. I am trying to reread more this year. I was trying to slow down my reading, and I just did not do that. Well, especially when you binge an entire series in a 5-book series in a weekend. Doesn't really help with the slowing down, but it was just so good. And yes, a new favorite for sure. But that is all I have for now. If you made it to the end of this video, leave me a crown emoji because on the rear crown princess. So leave me a crown emoji, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps me out, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye!